And when we want to find solutions, critical thinking is essential. It's problem solving by thinking outside of the box.
It's a new way of learning, and it's the wave of the future.
It's not your traditional educational experience anymore. You walk into classrooms and they're noisy and kids are engaged and they are taking on real problems in their own community and solving them.
They had an opportunity to come together with Mayor Ginther, and he came to them to problem solve and to really think about some of the big issues that are happening in the city and how can we solve them.
If we can keep that passion going, if we can keep the vision going for these children, then they're going to be able to tackle really whatever comes their way in the future. I get really excited when I think about that.
We guide our children to have independent thinking, critical thinking. They can analyze the information. They can think about what's right, what's wrong.
It's connecting the classroom to the community and making our students active change agents.
A large part is our students' attitude. It's how they approach challenges and overcome them. Challenges don't have to be scary or uncomfortable. They can be exciting and rewarding to overcome.
We're always learning things new about science.
I wrote a 20-page research paper, and I enjoyed it. Now that I'm looking back at it, I really enjoyed the entire process, because in the end, I opened my paper and I was like, oh my God, I really wrote this entire 20-page paper. And at first I thought it was gonna be super hard, but just thinking about the process, I fell in love with writing.
And it can be hard to problem solve. So I think that kind of imagining what it might look like and then putting that into real life can really help.
But if you make a mistake, it's okay, because mistakes is easy. You can kind of fix it.
There is a real commitment to push them and encourage them and find that niche, find that area that really encourages those students to move forward, to try things, to make mistakes, but to get back up and learn how to do that successfully.
We also want our students to apply critical thinking to themselves. What goals do they have? What do they want to do when they graduate? By thinking about their future early, our students start the process of considering who they aspire to be, beginning in pre-K, and that's exciting.
And so we're looking to really emphasize the idea of Porch Over Graduate starting cradle and ending career.
Having long-term goals and short-term goals help them to realize what is your ultimate purpose, to learn as much as you can to graduate so you can go on to college and whatever else you choose to do, so that you will be ready for the world and you'll be successful with whatever you choose.
That helps them grow as people, because then they can see the world through a more critical lens.
When we think about creativity, we're talking about students using their imagination to build something of value. And when our students learn with creativity at the forefront, it opens doors to new ways of approaching challenges.
I just got chills, because in all my years in the district, we have not had this level of support for this pathway of learning that speaks to the whole child. Expression in the arts is something that we encourage. Our students have many opportunities to participate in concerts with the bands, strings, orchestra, art exhibitions.
And what's exciting about this attribute is that creativity isn't limited to the arts. It's applicable to everything our students do.
Creativity is about how you think. It's about freedom. It's freedom to challenge the norm.
Everybody's creative in their own way. I feel like even if you don't think you're creative, trust me, you're creative. It kind of relates to being unique to me, because everybody's unique.
I like being creative. I love mixing colors and stuff. I like to be creative because usually I wouldn't show my talents because I'm always shy.
Creativity actually helps a lot with studying. If you're not creative, you're going to copy other people.
And that's the key. We want our students to come up with their own ideas and their own ways of learning, to understand what methods work best for them.
I'm curious, which means I just keep wanting to learn more and more and more and more.
That's where innovation is going to come from. Not from, the folks who've been doing it the same way for the last 30 or 40 years. It is going to come from the newer generation.
How do we set them up? We give them the tools that they need to be able to do whatever it is in life that they want to do.
We have the Adobe suite of products at our disposal now for our students to use at schools and at home to unleash their creativity. I'm so happy we're able to provide the tools finally now so that they can go and unleash it.
When our students use their creativity to build something of value, there's no limit to what we want them to create. It could be artwork, a dance performance, a new business, or a new idea, a club, or a movement. Value is defined not by who you are, but by who you impact.
It's propelling our students to what's next.
We have to make sure that we open up the doors for creativity. Don't try and change their trajectory. Allow them to be creative, allow them to discover the world.
And that's the power of being a creative person, a creative thinker. I know I can do anything I put my mind to. And I love being who I am.
At the end of the day, the question is why? Why go to all this trouble? Why make changes? Why take a new direction? The answer is simple: love. We are doing this for the love of learning, the love of teaching, love for our students.
One of the, I think, amazing things that have come out of this process is this idea that we will never be normal again, right? We have pushed through to a space of innovation, and we want to keep that and harness that energy.
What has not changed is the dedication and the drive. I mean, that is really why we're here.
What gets me up every morning is the love of students.
We are all about the kids. We put our lives on the line for the kids.
I knew I love you, I love you, I love every single one of you, and I have to continue doing what I'm doing to make sure that you have those opportunities to be successful.
I feel like that's what created my love for learning, is because I was really close with my teachers and my principals and all of that stuff.
I know she knows that she built me, and I'm always grateful for that.
When I grow up, I want to be a teacher so I can teach.
And when you spend time with children, you see potentials and you see the future and you want the best for them.
Our children, our students are always, always the center. And that is what Portrait is helping us do, to keep them the center and define what that looks like.
This is much more than just words on a page. It is a new day. Now is the time to put these words into action for our students, for our community, for us.
It is hard to get that synergy going, where your partners are also hand in hand with you with the same goals, and that we have in Columbus. We're blessed to have that in Columbus.
Now we have the board that will back her up and continue to push and really get us where we need to be so we can be a model of urban education.
At a time when COVID-19 has upended school years and transformed what learning is, how it feels, and what it looks like, I need you to know your graduation is important because we need you.
Yes, this year was tough, but you have proven to us that you're tougher.
Columbus City Schools has gone on to graduate students from Harvard, from Spelman, from Morehouse, from Duke, from OSU.
These students are the future of Columbus.
When people thought that we couldn't, when people said that we wouldn't, we did.
In Columbus City Schools, Portrait of a Graduate is the cornerstone to ensuring our graduates are well equipped to thrive, not only globally, but right here in Central Ohio.
Our work is just beginning, and we look forward to taking this journey together.
Okay, welcome everyone to the September 1st meeting of our Audit and Accountability Committee. Madam Auditor, would you take the roll?
Yes. Chair Beckerly,
Here.
Ms. Vera, who I see is on the screen.
She's online.
Mr. Grant,
Here.
Mr. Vajon,
Present.
Ms. Reyes, Mr. Jordan,
Here.
Mr. Daniel,
Here.
and you have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. The first order of business, we will approve the minutes.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any objection? All right. So noted, the minutes are approved. Now, Madam Auditor, I'll take it over, send it over to you for
Thank you.
a report.
At our last...
Actually, can I interrupt for a minute? I did want to take a moment to say something about, the strike and what we've been through over the past few months. I think, obviously, we're incredibly grateful to be back in school and have our children and our teachers together. I think that it's really important that we start the healing process. And obviously, I think there's a few layers of that. So one of it is obviously how we interact with each other personally, and that's incredibly important, that we're intentional and work to promote healing. I also think that we need to keep our eye on something that our board president said repeatedly, which is we've got a lot of work to do and a lot of systems challenges that we need to address. And that's another way we promote healing, by starting to take those actions. And I've been thinking a lot about this, and I've been challenging us in this committee work and the Office of Internal Audit to be focusing on how does the audit plan, how does what we're doing affect student outcomes and the goals and the guardrails, right? And in a way, a proxy for that is how is this work, is our work, facilitating the work of the teachers, the social workers, the nurses, the counselors, the psychologists, and did I say nurses, counselors? But the CEA members that are basically carrying out our mission. So I think that some part of this healing needs to also be becoming even more intentional about what we're doing and how we're doing it and how it's impacting and facilitating their ability to be successful. So I just wanted to kind of put that in everybody's head as sort of a mindset to be carrying forward, across our organization, but certainly here as we're moving forward at this point in time.
Thank you, Chair Beckerly. The Office of Internal Audit, we have a few reports. At our last meeting, we had tabled requesting the release for the general ledger and financial reporting audit report because there were some discussions that we needed to have with the Treasurer's Office, and we also needed to look at some additional documentation. So I will ask Mr. O'Connor to give an update on that process and where we are today.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Smith. First thing I'd like to do is point your attention to page 3 of the executive summary. And in the box right there at the bottom of page 3, we had one high-risk item. That high-risk item is actually a moderate. I apologize for getting that in the wrong box when I was putting this together, but elsewhere in the report, it is reflected as a moderate.
Okay. So do we have 2 moderates then?
2 moderates, yes, 0 high and 0 low.
All right, good.
But back to the issue that Ms. Smith was talking about, there was a checklist that Terry Addison made us aware about as we were releasing the audit, and we tabled the audit to go look at that process. Terry Addison, once they closed the books for July or June 30, he walked us, Harold and I, through that whole process. That seemed to take care of the risks that we were concerned about. So we pulled out that issue and any recommendations associated with that. And the report you see there, and it was forwarded to you, is correct except for the one thing I noted earlier that we will correct as we post it on our website and distribute it to those people that need to get it. So that is the only thing I was going to go over today since we went over that report last meeting.
Right.
But I will take any questions anybody might have about that. Dan, did you have anything that you wanted to add about that? I'm sorry.
No.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Looking and clicking, but no, I have nothing to add. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Terry's here with us too, so Eric and Terry and I are together, but nothing to add.
Okay, so if I can have a vote to release the report?
Okay. I move to release, or can somebody move to release the report? Is that what we're looking for? Yeah. Motion to release the report.
I'll make the motion.
Okay.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Okay.
Seeing no objections,
Okay.
declare it released.
I don't know.
Motion passed.
Okay, motion carries. So that report will be released within 5 days. The next item under the Office of Internal Audit are external audits or external engagements. We've had a couple of engagements done by the Council of Great City Schools at the superintendent's request. We do work with the administration as far as the implementation of the issues noted. So I'm going to once again ask Mr. O'Connor to give us an update on the external engagement/audits.
Okay. We're going to go to page 9 of the current dashboard. Andrew put that up for us. And I just want to show you what I changed on that document. Yeah, there it is. So I did add a column with report date just to show you the date that report came out. Now, the Council of Great City Schools did not have a specific date. Theirs just said spring of 2020, so that's the reason I have incorporated that. And the reason we put this in our dashboard is the International Professional Practices Framework authorizes and organizes our authoritative guidance by the IIA, Institute of Internal Auditors, and that framework includes the standards that we adhere to. So one of their standards, 2500, talks about the CAE, Chief Audit Executive, must establish and maintain a system to monitor the disposition of results communicated to management. Furthermore, the CAE must establish a follow-up process to monitor and ensure management actions have been effectively implemented or that senior management has accepted the risk of not taking action. So to comply with that standard, we include that in our dashboard to keep you up to date. Our process to review these is we'll include them on the tracking sheet. We'll meet with the process owner to discuss action plans and implementation dates to resolve any comments in these reports. As those implementation dates arrive, we'll check in with the process owner to see if they're ready for us to validate anything. And then once we validate it, or if they don't have things ready, we'll just update the tracking spreadsheet and report that out to the committee. That's our process for these audits.
So right now, as you can see, we have an asterisk. We are not closing the items because the items did not originate with the Office of Internal Audit, but we believe strongly that, at a minimum, we should assist management as they go through and come up with their recommendations and as they're going through and implementing their recommendations. Unless I am guided otherwise, we'll continue that practice and we'll continue to update this body.
Well, just for clarity, one thing is to be tracked, just reporting on progress, which I think is what Kevin was saying.
Mm-hmm.
And the second thing is to be assisting. Are those two different activities?
Is to be what? I'm sorry.
You said assisting in the implementation, and because I could understand sort of the tracking the progress and what they're doing, and are they deciding to live with the risk?
Right.
Is one function. A separate function is expecting to be involved in the implementation. And so I'm trying to discern if we're talking about two different things or the same thing.
Well, once they come up with an action plan and they give us an implementation date, we like to just verify that that did resolve that recommendation. Or if it didn't, assist them in how they might make an adjustment to actually resolve that recommendation.
So it's a little bit more than just tracking.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
And this gets us back into this conversation that we've been having that's been kind of ongoing about when it's an audit that's commissioned, so to speak, by management. And, is that something that we as a board need to have this conversation probably again, want to, is there a chilling effect if they know that the Office of Internal Audit that answers to the board is going to be serving in this capacity, to whether the management ever seeks the advice to begin with? And that's the tension in having a internal auditor that reports directly to the board rather than to the superintendent, and that's something that the board has to make sure we're clear on. Do any of our community members have any thoughts to share on that topic? Mr. Daniel, I see you puzzling. I mean, it's an interesting dynamic.
I don't, but I guess the question would be, your asterisks on closed items will be determined by the external party. Are there plans to bring those external parties back in to validate? Because they probably aren't doing it for free. This was part of the original contract. I mean, I would have no concerns if the plan was these are recommendations go forward, that audit could look through it and validate it and actually deem them to be closed and so communicate it.
Okay.
And we are quite comfortable doing that, but because of the ongoing conversation, I was hesitant to go that extra step. But
Yeah, no, I mean, that's exactly what we need to talk about. And some of it has to do with our conversations with AJ and the Council of Great City School and the overall governance model about being very careful that we don't inadvertently, as a board, discourage the first step, which is management to commission the review to try to get a handle on what's really happening in the organization out of fear that, whatever is discovered will end up being used against them, so to speak. I mean, that's a little coarse way to say it, but you don't want to discourage your administration from wanting to get to the bottom of things, I guess is another way to say it. And that's something that we as a board need to make sure maybe we will visit again. Maybe we'll have a little more conversation with AJ about it. But I'm trying to see if that's a concern that resonates with those of you that are out in.
I wouldn't have any problem with it based upon you've got a roadmap established. And
say that first part again.
You've got a roadmap established in regards to that you are reviewing issues that have come up before.
And this is the roadmap?
Correct, exactly.
Okay.
And that's as long as you've got.
Everybody understands that?
Exactly.
Okay. And the other thing that I thought was an important thing that Kevin said is the management gets to say, and this is something I think as an organization we have to become a lot more comfortable with and start lifting these muscles a little more. I'm living with the risk, right? And then that is an acceptable answer to an audit where they initiated it in the first place, as opposed to, maybe one that the board has to decide whether they're going to live with the risk. I think that's, elevating that as the decision isn't a bad thing for everyone to understand that that decision's been made and to own it. But that's a big piece. We need to be more comfortable with living with the risk in order to accomplish our mission. And I like that step in the process a lot because it's the step that we need to take probably more often.
I guess one comment I had is just in looking at it from a dashboard standpoint is, and I know you're doing a review to make sure that they're following through, but I'm wondering if there shouldn't be some target dates for, some of the major items. I mean, you may have 15 items on here, but maybe encouraging them to have target dates for the top 5 as far as getting those implemented, so that kind of can move the process along, and not just be, well, did they implement it or did they not implement it?
Right, I see what you're saying there. Since spring of 2022, they're all still open. Okay, I mean, it's 2020, not 2022.
And we have met with the process owners, and they are aware of the dates and what's overdue. And we are actually trying to do exactly that. There are some, if it's a medium, risk item versus a high risk item versus something that's even, more risky than high, then we definitely want to have those conversations to move those items along.
Yeah, and you want to keep them encouraged, as you see items fall off, then they're more.
And there has been some. Yeah, there has been some movement. Some items have moved off, but I don't want to steal Kevin's thunder. But as far as, this process here, we are quite comfortable, closing the items. We just, because of the ongoing conversation, I was a little hesitant to go that step. Because I sincerely doubt if if we go in and we do the testing based on the recommendation. And we
entering things in that column, closed column, okay.
Correct.
And you wanted to get some guidance about whether to go ahead and do that or not.
Yeah, I just don't know if the original organization who did the engagement would actually come back in just to close items. If the Council of Great City Schools would come back in, if the vendor who did the purchasing review would come back in, if the Office of Inspector General who did the WCBE, if they would actually come back, for that purpose.
So, I mean, we can ask
Yeah, we can ask.
Okay. But you were hesitant to go forward because you weren't sure that was supposed to be your role.
Correct.
Got it, all right. I'm wondering, too, if maybe there's an opportunity here. Well, let's think about whether there's an opportunity here to also alleviate, I mean, maybe part of the function, the positive function, or for everyone involved would be, so say, I'm looking at either one of them, the Council of Great City Schools, both of them have a lot of outstanding items, right? Now, if we were to sit down with these organizations and say, yeah, they said that, but that's not real, that's a risk we can live with, or that, something's changing, it's overcome, and like, part of this has to be weighing heavily on them, I think, in a little bit, like, because they're not closing these out, unless they're closing them out themselves, and we just don't know about it.
We are working with definitely HR and going through those items. There's just some, I'm short of staff, so some of the things that we had planned to do, we're kind of reassigning to other people.
Okay, so, all right, so.
Yeah, we are working.
But it just
working
seems to
through
me
the
there's
HR.
also a benefit if we are able, or your team can come in and say, yeah, we're going to live with that risk. And the Office of Internal Audit agrees with HR, and then that's off their list of their outstanding items, that, they're going to feel there's resolution there too. Like, it seems to me there could be a benefit to going through.
That would be more for the, it wouldn't be for the Office of Internal Audit to.
Management. I highlights that management has agreed to.
Correct.
Right, and that it's been vetted.
Management in the past, I know
We're very reticent to live with
the previous committee formation wanted those discussions to happen with the committee. Management might recommend accepting the risk, but then the committee wanted to vet it. And then.
All right, let's think a little bit more about that process, but I think that
that was, like I say, previous iterations of this committee over the years.
But I think that, almost, there could be some value in getting management to absolutely say, instead of just like ignoring it, saying, yeah, we're going to live with that risk, and we're standing up and we're owning it, and we're moving on. Like, that's a mindset shift. There might be some opportunity here to start to get encouraging management to think differently about it if we make it safe for them to own those risks.
And there would need to probably be some guidelines as far as what risk can management decide that they're going to accept. If it's like a low risk or maybe even a moderate risk, maybe they can, just at their own, decide to accept that risk. But if it's something that, it's maybe a high, maybe that would need a little bit more vetting.
Right, and if it's the will of the board that this organization as a whole were to become more comfortable doing that, and we actually allow, that's how you change mindset. So let's think about this a little bit more. But
I think it'd be absolutely appropriate for management to accept risk at the right level. They could accept any risk. I mean, that's their role as leaders of the district. I think audit plays a key role in maintaining the inventory of those accepted risks. That's what we do. And they will grow over time. And some may fall off over time too as other processes change. But to look at those either individually or in the aggregate by activity or by departments and still say, does it make sense that these risks are being accepted? And some periodic affirmation to that. And I do agree with Carolyn that some guidance on who can accept what level of risk.
Right, and what level,
what's your guidance on that to who
your assigning authority in the same idea, yeah.
Right, and what goes to the committee or what's an inform, so.
And it's an opportunity for some of those higher risk things, as they get vetted, for senior management and or the board to say, we're okay with it.
Right.
Because that's how we're going to change the culture.
You don't want to put a $1,000 answer on a $10 problem.
Right. And leadership begins at top. And so if say there's some huge risk that we want to live with, and you bring it to the board, and the board says, okay, we're going to live with it, that will be the decision heard around the world, so to speak, like, oh, this is a different organization with it. And if it all goes back to we're living with it because we have to get to these outcomes, that's kind of where we want to end up.
I would argue
Uh-oh.
in instances where there hasn't been any action taken on some of these findings, you are already living with that risk.
True.
It's just the board hasn't established the guardrails for formally accepting the risk.
So we could start getting the list either way. You're living with this risk one way or another. That's the inventory.
I agree, absolutely. That if you have an issue that's past due by, say, 6 months or a year, whatever, you are in fact living with accepting the risk.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But I guess probably what it seems to me we're migrating toward here is keeping a list of it and identifying it and making it intentional and transparent.
Correct.
Those are some of the things that we're trying to do differently. Oh, thank you. This is a good discussion. All right.
All righty.
Thanks.
That concludes the external audits discussion.
Okay, next up is the Office of Internal Audit Charter. Now, this is different than the Audit and Accountability Committee Charter that we talked about probably
a year or so ago.
It's like before and after COVID is my timeline. Yeah, it might have been during COVID, because I remember being on camera when we talked about that, and I think at that point, it had been recommended by this body to go to the board, and that's where that one stands. The department also has a charter. I did not bring the document as far as what we were making sure that we aligned with, but our department charter just kind of clearly identifies the role of internal audit, our authority established by the board to go in and do the work that we do. It also establishes the reporting relationship of the chief audit executive to the governing body. We have a charter. What we did with this markup version was the IIA came out with, I want to say, some changes to their recommended charter, and we were just trying to make sure that ours aligned with those changes that they had made. And the last one from the IIA that I saw was dated 2019. So the changes that you will see in our draft is basically to have that alignment with the IIA. I don't think there's anything major, but
I didn't see anything either.
more than
That's
happy.
helpful, because I was kind of wondering where the origin of these changes were, but that makes sense.
Yeah, I'll be more than happy to answer any questions. And if anybody wants to actually see the document, I did leave it back at the office, but I can mail that out to you. So this does have to go to the board for adoption.
Right. So we should recommend that.
Correct.
Does anybody want to take any more time with it?
I just had one thought with it on page 2, under independence and objectivity, in that second paragraph. Having no direct responsibility or authorization to, or implementing internal controls. There are times when management can just get stuck on what the right control is. And I think it's absolutely appropriate for internal audit to recommend a control to get put in place. I just think they should inform the committee that we have in fact helped manage it by suggesting that this is the control they ought to put in place. Because otherwise we could incur a lot of time. I don't think it'll happen a lot, but I think we should give you the latitude to be able to do that, to help the district move forward. Just disclose that you've in fact shared with them what the best control they should put in place is.
So where it says accordingly, they will not implement internal controls, you would like add a sentence that says, but they may make recommendations?
Make recommendations and suggest a control and disclose such actions
to the board?
To the
committee.
To the committee.
Okay, we can make, I'm not opposed to that, that change.
I think you'll find that helpful.
Okay. So with that
We'll take it back.
edit, I would still like to.
Oh, okay.
You know, we'll make that edit, and that will be what goes to the board.
Okay.
That's
fine with me. So and from time to time, make recommendations regarding controls and disclose when they have done so to the committee. So there's some sort of express sentence in the audit reports where we actually made a recommendation. Okay, which is not necessarily the ordinary course. I guess I should be talking into this all alone. Oops. Okay,
and it might be in a report, it might be just a review of a process. So in either case, it would still come before the committee.
Right, it's incumbent upon the Office of Internal Audit to highlight to us that they have done so. Right. Got it.
So Carolyn, is there enough guidance in this revised charter that as new guidance comes out from the IPPF, you don't have to rewrite this, that you just will be adhering to their new guidance? I just saying that rather than have to revisit this each time a new guidance come out, if it, just by reference, it can address that.
We could, but it doesn't come out that frequently, and I'm looking at Greg, 'cause I know you're very active, with the IIA. It's not like it comes out every
We have an annual review of our charter, and it was a 30-second conversation in June, no changes.
And that's what we,
I mean, that's fine, I just
we
want.
kind of got behind.
The last big one was 2019. We had a handful.
Yeah, and you could see we had, I just kind of forgot to bring it back. We had made the changes, and this has been around here since 2019. So.
And publicly changes all the time.
And we review it.
We be doing that all the time.
Yeah, we review it annually the same way that we
That's
review our procedural manual.
Yeah, it's going to change significantly in a couple of years.
Yeah. So you'll have a lot of work cut out for you. Okay, can I have a
Motion to forward to the board for approval?
okay.
A second.
Any objections? Seeing none, the motion passes.
Okay. Next, the Office of Internal Audit is charged with managing the anonymous fraud, waste, and abuse reporting system, and we have accomplished that by working with Lighthouse, and we've been with them for about 3 years now. 3 years now. Yeah, we do a very thorough review of that contract and the services around 60 to 90 days before it comes back up for evaluation. We're very happy with that service that they provide, so I will turn it over to Kevin Sankowski to go over the events that transpired in 2022, FY 2022.
Thank you, Carolyn. For reference purposes, I'm looking at the little colorful infographic that you got. And I'm just going to give you a couple of additional notes just to add some context to the information that you see in comparison mostly to prior year activity. So if you start out up in the top right-hand corner in the 26 reports that were received in FY 22, that is a bit of a drop-off, and it is the lowest that we've had in the past 7 years. So that there is at least trending a little bit downward. If you look over to the left-hand side of that top little box there, it talks about the sources, and you'll see that all 26 of those reports came in via our fraud, waste, and abuse anonymous reporting mechanism. That is seems to be a continuing trend, and that is the second year in a row in which all of our items that were reported to us came in via that mechanism. As far as anonymous versus not anonymous, it's pretty consistent over the last couple of years. This year it's at 81% turned out to be anonymous, which is consistent with prior years. Last year in 2021 was 84%, 2020 was 82% being anonymous. Let's see, as far as dispositions go, the rank order is really no change from prior years. Just the quantities of them still in that order as far as referred to management, referred to employee relations, preliminary inquiry, and the like that you see there. That rank order stayed pretty much the same from prior years. Just to break note, the one item that is referred to a segment review is we did get a report regarding behavior reporting from a particular school, and we're going to incorporate and roll that report into the planned FY 2023 student discipline and behavior reporting audit that we have planned as part of our yearly plan. As far as departments go, transformation and leadership again is the leader. As far as the department that had the most reports, That is consistent with prior years as well, but it's not totally unusual. Transformation and leadership encompasses all of our school buildings, and you figure that's where most of the employees are within our organization, so it's not really super surprising that the higher probability and the higher number of reports come regarding transformation and leadership from a department standpoint. If you look at the average days open and the average days open for both all reports and closed reports, we put them on here. They're not super helpful from a comparison standpoint. Gives you some context of where we were within the current year. There's a lot of things that can impact the length of time in which something might be open, and so we don't really have a control in place or a metric or a goal that we shoot for. So it's really presented just as informational. It is our intent to try to close them as soon as we can and as soon as possible. But like I said, there are sometimes things that have an impact on that are outside our control. And so from a measurement standpoint, it really is more informational than it is intended to be any kind of comparative or trend type of thing. Ms. Beckerly, it looked like maybe you had a question.
Yeah, but why don't you just finish, and then I have a couple of things.
Okay, very good. Let's see, the next item is the nature of the reports down there in the bottom right-hand corner. Again, also consistent with prior year, unethical conduct and employee misconduct and inappropriate behavior for the last 3 years have been 1 and 2. This year, it is in this order. For the past 2 years, those two items were flip-flopped from a matter of the nature of the reports that we received. And then finally, just a report on the bottom down there, you see where we have the information for how to contact the, or how to use the fraud, waste, and abuse hotline. I'm happy to report that I think it was the last month or so, we've made some enhancements and actually got our link a little more prominent on the CCS webpage. To where now it literally shows up on, there's a ribbon across the top of the webpage that shows up on every page of when somebody clicks through the website, and so they see that link, which will then take them to the page on how to file a report that also has the link to get them to the Lighthouse service, and they're able to enter their thing directly. So we're happy. It's kind of a weird thing, and that none of us were really thinking about it too much until our most recent employee. We were just having a very nonchalant conversation one day, and he asked, well, how do we file a report? And we started going through how to do it, and I'm like, oh, this is a lot more complicated than I think it needs to be. So we had to see if we could simplify that. And with the fantastic help of our folks in communications, in a matter of like 15 minutes, we had it solutioned and put it up there. And so now it's very readily apparent for folks to see that link and offer them an opportunity to use that system to report something. So any questions?
I have a couple, but that's good news. We need to celebrate that. That's our systems working well. So I'm not surprised, but I'm very happy to hear that. That's great. And, it's important for us to look like we're serious about being receptive to these complaints. So
we do have that in other places throughout the website. Like we have it on some employee self-service. It's in vendor self-service as well. There's a blurb on how to file one if they would like to file one along with the link. But that was really nice to be able to put that so that anybody that goes to the website at any point and clicking through almost any page on the website will see that if they want to report, it'll take them to the right page and get them right down the road to file a report.
that's terrific. On the averages, it probably going forward, when you share this data, it would be good to see the outliers, even though there's and that know that there's a reason for it. Averages tend to not really tell us an awful lot.
Right.
And in terms of understanding how effective our processes are, if we were to say, well, this one is 6 months open, but it's because of X, or so that we have a better sense of how well we're really doing in terms of not pursuing, what's the right word? Managing, handling, and closing out when necessary, or, handing it off to legal or whatever you would do, So I just think I wouldn't mind seeing a little more about that, so we just have a little more visibility. And my hunch is that extra visibility will just show the vigilance and the, efficiency that's actually happening. And so it's not, no one can say, well, we're hiding behind an average. And then I guess, do we have any sense with an organization our size, whether it's in education or otherwise, like, are these to be expected? It seems to me that, I mean, these are fairly low numbers for $1.5 billion annual, give or take, organization with as many employees as we have. I mean, I'd be tempted to say that we're doing something right, but I don't know if there's any basis for that.
I don't think it's unusual, and I can't remember, and as soon as I saw these, I was anticipating that question. Lighthouse, when we...
Beckerly's going to ask that.
When we put it in place, Lighthouse
oh, yeah,
had
they
a
might
suggestion
have that.
of how many you could expect to get based on, and it's not so much the dollar value of your organization as much as it is how many employees you have. And I wish I could remember what that is, but we're pretty in line with what that number is.
I mean, that's fine. I was just curious.
Yeah, 26 is the lowest that we've had in like I said, in 7 years. But it's not so far off from the size of our organization, if I can remember what Lighthouse said. Because they put us at, I want to say 40, you could expect 40. Well, that was the tier that they put us at, was at 40 reports a year.
Okay, so we're below that.
And that was using that percentage or their measure of what you would typically expect based on the number of employees you have.
Okay.
And I do remember when I first was trying to get information on how these systems operated, I called some pretty significantly sized vendors in this, organizations in the Columbus area, and asked them, okay, how many do you, get? And we were pretty comparable to, to what that number was as far as, other organizations of our size and of our employee size.
I'll make a note then. I'll find that actual number of what they said from Lighthouse out of their material, and we'll relay that.
So the one disposition that's going to find its way into a segment review, I assume that the actual complaint is being disposed of, but that the concept or that you're using it as a indicator that you should pay attention to this when you do the segment review, like that we're not putting it off until 2023.
It'll be specifically included in the audit that they do.
Okay, so what about other action taken on this particular complaint?
We have not taken any other action.
Okay.
Kevin, I think most of these items are coming from internally within the school district, employees or staffing.
Yeah, good question.
Yeah, I think I don't have I believe that probably 100% of them actually are all employees, because they have the ability to still remain anonymous, but most of them will also answer the question, are you an employee? They typically answer yes.
Okay.
So if not 100%, it's an extraordinarily high percentage of the 26.
And the two calls that came in for the Office of Superintendent, who does that follow-up? Is that done by council or done by internal audit?
It really depends on the nature. The nature of these two actually fall into the no action, because we determine them to be frivolous based on the nature of the report. That's an excellent question. We haven't actually encountered that to where we actually had to make a next step on something. So that's an excellent point to make. So we have a plan for that.
Luckily, not this year, but a couple of years ago, there was one involving the Office of Internal Audit, and that one was done by HR.
You didn't do that?
No, it's set up that way that if it's, the Office of Internal Audit or the auditor, it goes to, another
That's good practice.
So in dispositions, we're not able to tell how many, if any, were actually valid complaints. Unsubstantiated 3, I guess. So we know 3 weren't.
Not, right, correct. I mean, the ones referred to management are usually management-type issues that we simply send on to them for their information and consideration, you know, if it's some type of management item that they can address and leave it up to them. We don't typically ask for responses back to manage the responses of those because they are management issues.
To begin with.
Yeah, I mean, occasionally, like in some of the preliminary inquiry types of things, is we may ask management for additional information, answer some questions, but then we categorize it as a preliminary inquiry and it's unsubstantiated, or if it were substantiated, or if it looked like it needed a different referral, like perhaps to employee relations, for them to actually investigate since they have that authority, we would then turn it over and refer it to employee relations.
Okay, so now I understand. So the 7 that go to employee relations are the things that require further action because they could be substantial or
Yeah, and they fall into their bailiwick of investigation of employee misconduct or employee behavior of some sort. Falls into their authority for the actual investigation of it, so we'll refer it to them.
So generally speaking, 7 out of 26 were sufficiently valid that you passed them along for further follow-up.
Of a significance. I mean, the other ones are still management issues that should be considered by somebody, like the 11.
Okay, right.
They still should be considered by management. You know, they may do their own little preliminary review or examination of it and determine that there is no actual issue. But we leave that to them to make that decision, and we don't manage a response from them.
Okay. So but the 7 that go to employee relations, you do keep track of?
We do. We do track those through disposition, working with John Dean, and just getting, you know, whether they investigate, don't investigate, if they do, whether it gets closed, how it gets closed, and just make a note in our files.
I'm harping on this a little. Harping isn't the right word, but you know, we often get, we filed a complaint, nothing ever, you know, like the stuff you hear in the community all the time. You know, I filed this complaint, never heard anything about it, you know, or I did, and I don't even know if they're talking about this, you know, through this process or, you know, customer relations down at 270. It could be, but it's a theme, you know, and so I'm kind of trying to make sure I understand. So,
I can assure you in each of these cases, the reporter is responded to. There's a functionality within the platform that allows us direct communication back to the reporter. Mm-hmm. It's part of our process that once it's disposed of or once it's resolved in the Office of Internal Audit, there is a communication back to every one of those reporters.
About what was done with their...
Correct. I mean, for instance, if it was referred to management, they would get a statement that says, we've considered your report, we've referred it to the Director of Custodial Services or the Director of Buildings and Grounds, whoever might be the most appropriate place that we referred it to.
So what's an example of something that gets referred to management in terms of, you know, so I'm imagining there's this person who thinks this is this awful thing that's happening. I have to call in and tell the hotline. And then you look at it and you're like, well, and that happens sometimes from the perspective of where the person is. It seems like this is wrong, but in the greater scheme of things, when you understand the fuller picture, you realize it's appropriate. You know, I mean, I certainly have had that experience.
A very good example of that is we just recently had a report from, I think it might have actually been a parent or someone visited one of the buildings and had a concern with the condition of the restrooms. And so what we did is we took that, thanked them for that report, considered that report, evaluated it. We sent it on to the Director of Custodial Services, who then responded back to me that says, well, I'm going to send a supervisor out to that school today, and we'll have somebody look into it.
Okay.
So that would be like a referral to management. And so then at the end of that process, we go back into the platform and respond to the reporter and tell them, here's what we've done with it. We've gotten it, we've looked at it, considered it, you know, appropriate to refer it to the Director of Custodial Services.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. That's really helpful to kind of get a fuller picture of it all.
Sure, you're welcome.
Yeah, but what was the last part you said? And you said when you go back into the system, did you say something about getting back to the person who reported it?
Yes, if they submit it via the system, there is the option for them to have a dialogue function. They select whether they want to have the dialogue or not. And you dialogue through the platform as opposed to like a direct email to OIA or a direct email to me. It's handled all through the platform. And so if that dialogue function is on, and it typically is, they usually will put that function on. Part of our process is at the conclusion of it and the disposition of it, we will send them a response back via the platform to tell them what the disposition of it was.
So they would have a way of knowing if you've done anything with that complaint?
Yes. Okay. And there's a complete record of the dialogue in the system. So, you know, we also acknowledge when we get the report, we will immediately acknowledge back to the reporter that we've gotten the report, that we'll consider it, and that we will respond back to them once we've had it evaluated.
I was wondering how much you share with, you know, even just in a summary fashion with all employees so that they understand that fraud, waste, and abuse is something that is being monitored and is being dealt with. So even, you know, somebody that may never have, you know, reported anything can see that that's an important priority to the school district and see that, you know, there is communication going on, or at least, you know, from some, just like what we're looking at today, some kind of summary that, you know, it's being followed up on.
Yeah, we presently don't, but that's a fantastic idea, is to whether it's like an email blast or whether it's, you know,
and it
posted
encourages
someplace.
others that, you know, they are aware of something.
We do
that,
post, we do post this annually on the OIA portion of the website, but it is a little bit further down in the website. But your point of maybe making it a little more prevalent so that all of the employees see that. Excellent.
Kevin, are you implying that the first thing that people do when they go to our website is not go to the OIA page and read it, you know, just
I would never
like
imply that.
page to page?
That'd be the first page.
Well, I mean, and you know, to Mr. Grant's point, a 30 or 45-second video that we asked every manager to share at their staff meeting at the beginning of the year would be a great way to convey that this is important to us, and it's kind of no-brainer in terms of ease and not imposing on principals and managers and custodian managers and all those. Like, that would be
And it's been a couple of years since we, when we implemented Lighthouse as our new provider, we did a little bit more education. We did a little bit more marketing, if you want to call it, or just to make people aware of it. And that has been 2 or 3 years now. It might be worth a consideration of developing some type of communication district-wide to just reinforce that, point people back to where they can do it, and just reinforce that whole idea that it's important and that here's how you do it.
Let's, I mean, put a pin in that and maybe cover it and report to the board. Because, you know, this is all part of my thoughts about how do we heal going forward. We show who we are and we show what's important to us. And, you know, so if you were to share with the board that this is something we're doing, I think that would be good for us to start role modeling it. And it's actually a good idea. You know, I mean, it's not performative. It's a really substantive thing that we should be doing.
Yeah, in the past, I believe.
Evan, you should star in it.
In the past, this is part of my, one of my board reports, but I definitely like the idea of intentionally, you know, making it more aware, making the staff more aware that it's out there and it's being monitored and being responded to.
Yeah, and Kevin too, or whoever, Carolyn, and talk about we close the loop. You know, because we keep hearing from the community, you know, the black hole of this report, or the black hole of work orders and all of this. So to start, you know, focusing on when we are doing it right and share that, you know, in this context, in these reports, we're very intentional about closing the loop. So I think that's an opportunity. Thank you. Thank you, thank you.
Okay, next is a update on the issues and recommendation tracking, and that'll be Mr. O'Connor.
And again, Andrew will put a spreadsheet up here for us. This is a handout in your packet, so it was not forwarded in advance. This is as of September 1st, and I still did the same areas of responsibility, superintendent, operations, and office of treasurer. And there's a couple different columns, implemented, not verified, and then I broke those down by high, moderate, and low. And again, those are the ones that management has told us are ready for OIA validation. The columns for in progress are the ones where management is still actively working those corrective action plans. And then I have a subtotal item. But the difference with this spreadsheet is I broke it down by department. We have so many new leaders in departments or new areas of responsibility that have switched departments. We did it like this so we will have the opportunity to go out and meet with the chief or director of that department, sit down and go over these comments that might have been 3 or 4 years ago.
I lost track.
Make sure they understand them, correct, and make sure they're still relevant and valid. If they're not, we can squash them right there and we never have to go forward with them. But I think it's a conversation between us and management to get to that point. And I think breaking it down by department will assist us in that. Instead of leaving it at the high level, superintendent and treasurer, this will give us an opportunity to do that. A couple items of note here is like the superintendent. Now, we last presented this in May of 2022, so you'll see their recommendations that they've closed out are 8. Operations was 17, and the treasurer's office was 7. So combined, it's minus 32 recommendations have been resolved or closed out since May. And if you go back even further, since last October, 11 months ago, the total is 102. So and not only are the 102, but 49 of those were high-risk items, which is the ones we really want to be focusing on. Anybody have any questions or comments with that process to even improve it more?
Well, yeah, just a quick one. So what you're saying, I think, is that now that you're approaching this at the sort of the departmental level, you're going to revisit all the leads of these various departments and say, these are the reports that are in your area, and these are the outstanding issues, and let's talk about them.
These are the open recommendations.
Right.
Here's why they are a recommendation. They might have compensating controls they put in place since they took over.
And they never
that
bothered to tell.
mitigate that,
Okay.
that whole recommendation.
So it's a conversation.
Absolutely.
That could actually lead to eliminating these things.
Correct.
And we just closing the loop.
That's right.
All right, good.
And just get those to go away as opposed to just leaving them on our spreadsheet because they haven't reached out to us, we haven't reached out to them. This will give us a better way to work with management.
That seems good. Thank you.
So again, I'll probably bring this back again in January, let you know which departments I've met with and our progress on that.
Kevin, I thought, my memory might be fuzzy, but I thought we had an aging at some one point that we looked at, right? Okay. And just, do you recall, just of the 82 highs that are in progress, just how many are woefully past due?
Significant amount of them.
Okay.
And the reason I didn't bring the aging, it's just not going to tell us anything because the things are so old.
Yeah.
We really needed to sit down with management to ensure if they had a compensating control, or maybe they're not even using the system anymore where we had the comment. So that if they've switched systems, that comment goes away. We would make sure it's present in the current system they're using, but that specific comment would be remedied.
Right, and that's back to Mr. Vadjon's earlier comment that some of these are so past due, you've in fact de facto accepted the risk.
Sure.
Of some of these.
It makes me think, though, regarding anything that we do from a risk acceptance standpoint, whether it should be similar review upon change in management, maybe at the highest level, like superintendent or deputy superintendent or treasurer, if we ever have that. Meaning that if prior component of management accepted the risk, somebody new might have a different perspective and risk appetite.
Good point.
Something to consider too.
Yeah, the old guy accepted the risk. You might not want to accept this risk.
Well, times change, risk appetite changes.
Sure, even within the same management, true. Yeah, that is very true. Okay. So we'll be looking forward to seeing the next update of this.
Yes.
Good.
The next item is the internal audit activity and dashboard report. And I will look to Mr. O'Connor to go over that.
All righty. Page 3 is the current status of fiscal year 22 audits and projects. We have 3 categories. Again, the audit area of this page, we've categorized 5 audits as carryovers, and those audits will be presented at coming A&A meetings. Going forward, this is the last A&A we'll have the fiscal year 22. You'll see the next page is page 4, but any carryovers not coming before the committee at the September 29th, I'll incorporate on the fiscal year 23 audit job progress list. In the follow-up area, you'll see one item, position control was moved to carryover. That's actually an item that is in the Council of Great City Schools HR report. So that has been scheduled by the Department of Talent to work through. So as they do that, that'll come up this year, and we'll work through that. And then.
So that's one of the 15 from that other page?
Yes, correct. Yep. And then you'll see the Council of Great City Schools HR follow-up and transportation follow-up reports. Those are ongoing because those are going to continue into fiscal year 23. So page 4, these are the fiscal year 23 audit plan that was approved by the committee and the board. And this is where we stand on those current jobs. So there's only 2 categories this year, audits and projects. Follow-up, we're going to do a little bit differently, so they're not going to have specific audit jobs. We're just going to meet with those people and then flush those out as we go. So in the audit area, we have district readiness. That's being finalized. All the work is done. We're just gathering the documents. We do have a couple open items to follow up or obtain. And then special education services, that is in the planning stages.
Okay, I have a question about district readiness. Is that
Yes.
was that the, what, are we ready to open district readiness?
That one's wrapping up field work.
But that's what we're talking about.
Correct, yes. Oh, yeah, they're ready to open schools, that's
But we're already open.
correct.
Okay.
Well, anything that we found, we gave management real-time
Immediately.
advice because
Okay.
we couldn't wait. We knew our report wouldn't be issued until after school opened.
Okay, okay.
So we provided that feedback.
All right, good, good, good. When you report on that, I'd be really interested to hear, you know, how productive it was. Were you finding things? Was it really helpful? Like, was it constructive? Because it was really intended to be an assist.
Correct.
And so I'll be interested in learning whether that vision and reality merged or not.
And Ms. Smith wants us to feed or follow up with management from their perspective.
Yeah,
Was it
get
an
their
assist?
feedback. Was it helpful?
That's correct,
Absolutely.
yes.
Yeah.
To see where we might be able to maneuver to help them even more going forward.
Right.
So that will be part of our report
Excellent,
out also.
excellent. Terrific.
Either Kevin or Carolyn, another quick question. In the information technology audits, it's been several years ago. We had, I guess, a risk assessment or assistance done by Schneider Downs in this space. Is the plan to use an external firm again this year?
I'm going to look at K2. You know, we have our in-house resource. So I'm kind of letting him kind of determine, you know, if we need those additional resources from an outside firm or if he thinks that, you know, he's fine without it. So for right now, K2, you want to add, I mean, Mr. Sankowski, do you want to add to that?
Are you speaking to audit
Yes.
assurance engagements?
Yes.
And using external resources for that?
Just to make sure we got the right scope. This is a complex area, and so having somebody else just look over your shoulder and kick the tires is a good idea sometimes.
We are using the Schneider Downs risk assessment as the basis for our audits, the domains of the audits that we get into, and then constructing objectives based on information that's in there as well as additional information that's gathered during the planning process. Currently, we only have the one resource, so we only have scheduled in the upcoming year just 2 audits in the IT space. But I mean, if I guess is the question, will we be able to achieve the audit plan or the not our plan, because our plan, I think we will be able to achieve since we only have the 2 audits scheduled. But whether or not that fully encompasses the Snyder Downs proposed audit plan, because in their risk assessment, they included kind of like I want to say it was either a 3 or a 5-year schedule for when to do particular things. I don't think we're on that schedule, and if it is our desire to achieve that schedule, we would definitely have to look into probably looking for some additional resources.
I just would simply ask, this world changes every day. And I think the review was several years ago, which still, all those domains are still the same. Just the question is, if we think it's beneficial for some of us to say, you know, things have changed in the last 2 or 3 years, probably been a little more than that. You know, should we still be looking at these areas or something different? And if we need some resources of a more technical nature, I would just recommend bring it back to the committee and let us know if there's more needs that you have.
Yeah.
Do you have a feel for, or some guidance on how frequently the IT risk assessment should be done? The last one, I think, was delivered to us in June of 21 is when it was delivered to us, and that's the one we're working off of. Is there any suggested guidance on how more frequently we should be considering doing that?
I think from our space, it's at least an annual upon significant events, right? So how do you define what is a significant event, right? You can look at things like COVID probably triggering somebody like our workforce shifting from 100% on-site to something to like 100% remote. That would be a trigger event. But yeah, at least annually. The other components looking at potentially updates, key updates to frameworks that you're relying upon. So if you're relying upon NIST, their recent update to like 853 version to version 5, which is their security framework, that might potentially evaluate, is there things that they've called out as significant change, right? New controls they've added, new domains they've added. So.
And I think we are notorious as an organization for doing this sort of thing. Oh, we finally got an IT person who's an expert in our Office of Internal Audit, and then we expect them to do 10 people's work because we never really staff up to what the need is. And this strikes me as a perfect example of that because, and then we just fit our work scope, you know, and so we're always playing catch up, but in this area it's so critical that we probably need to make sure we think about this and act on it fairly quickly because
I agree with Mr. Vajon. I think it's once a year, and this, again, it changes so much. And you think about the various egress points have changed where folks can access data, what's on websites, what students are doing now, teachers, third parties. It's an active area.
And I think to the point is once we do this annual review, then we decide how much can we handle in-house and how much do we have to bring in help in order to stay on top of it. And I'm going to go back to healing because although I suppose if you're, well, if part of the audit is, you know, how much more support do they need in this function? Because the technology is always driving us all, giving us fits, right? You know, and so if we were able to, through this process, say, well, we need X number more processing capacity in order for the computers not to crash, or we need, you know, this additional safety thing. And if our audit revealed that because we were on top of it, and then management can say, well, the audit department, you know, say to us as the board, you know, you got to pay for this somehow. But that's important. And you know, we're at a moment in time, I have to be very careful how I word this, but where we might be able to catch up a little bit. You know, we have this ESSER money, and I think that the government's even starting to be a little more flexible, the federal government, with, you know, how we can spend it. And if, you know, if there was a moment in time right now where we were able to say, okay, we're going to, you know, get ahead of ourselves or at least catch up, we might be able to do that through hiring outside services here and there and that sort of thing. So I think that we need to think about it in that context.
Yeah, we are evaluating that.
Good.
I mean, we, you know, I think I started the conversation, we have this in-house resource, he's out there working the risk assessment that was presented by Schneider, but if we do need to, bring back in some outside resources, I have the budget to do that.
And even if you don't have the budget to do that, come to us and say, I need the budget.
Okay.
Because, and to somehow get this annual thing, out external review as part of the going forward, because, the risk is critical, but also if we were able to, if you all were able to identify areas where investment would facilitate our teachers or social workers, whatever's ability to deliver quality instruction, that would be a helpful finding too. That I think, that voice never gets heard. You're in the classroom day after day and you're like, oh, this computer keeps, crashing on me, or whatever it is. I don't know. The kids keep getting to websites they shouldn't get to. We need a different sort of, those programs that stop them from doing walls.
Firewalls.
Firewall. We need a better firewall system or something.
Web filters.
And and meanwhile, the teachers know that every day, right? But nobody's raising that up in a way that if we were doing an audit more thoroughly, we might. Unless I'm missing something.
No, I'm not saying that you're missing something, but we're evaluating that.
Yeah, no, I'm just encouraged.
And no, and that, that was part of the plan, was to see, okay, now that we have someone who can, more timely address the risk assessment, then it would take us to, bring in outside resources, but it was always the plan. I know we just have one person, but if they do need additional support, we're prepared, and currently resourced to do that.
Right.
And definitely, if the resources are not there, I'll be the first one to come back to the board, saying, this is what the going rate is now, and I didn't anticipate this.
Yeah, it sounds a little bit like we already know that we need more. It's part of what I think Greg is kind of getting at.
Yeah, this is Satya.
Hi, Satya.
Is it okay if I add in few comments?
Sure.
Yeah, I think I heard from Erjan and Jordan about external risk assessment. If it is really related to A and B, attack and pen testing, yes, this has been followed every year. This year also there was one report that was submitted by external vendor to the IT management, and internal audit is working with IT management to make sure the attack and pen testing findings were closed appropriately in a timely manner. If the question is related to the purely the risk assessment on top of A and B testing, I don't think we have planned anything for this year, because in June 2021, the Snyder Down findings were really good. And those findings, we are lining up with IT management and making sure those risk issues as well as the areas identified by them are planning for my IT scope, my IT audit scope. The first audit was done. The second audit, I'm planning to complete the scope in about a month or so for my second audit, which is going to be on the infrastructure side. Hope that is helpful. Any questions on that?
No, thank you. Okay.
Vaja, Jordan?
Thank you.
All righty, continuing on page 4. We're in the process of updating our procedure manual, that's known as the OPM, and we have completed and updated the Office of Internal Audit COOP plan, and that has been turned over to Safety and Security. If you go to page 7, again, this 7 and 8 are just follow-up, same type of information that was presented on the prior or previous sheet. It's just by area of responsibility and color-coded for the risk ratings. slide 9 or page 9, we have reviewed that one. Page 11, a couple staff professional development activities that occurred since our last meeting in June. And then on page 12, these are non-audit activities, some of the miscellaneous stuff, advising, consulting, there's federal state grant compliance, that project's in progress. A couple outreach activities, staff is making a presentation to the Information Systems Audit and Control Association, the Central Ohio chapter of ISACA, entitled Changing Dynamics of Risk and IA Function, and that'll be on September 8th. Also, OIA and HR staff have been approved to present change management dynamic transformation following a Council of Great City Schools HR audit at the Council of Great City Schools Fall Conference in October. So that's really working with, showing all the school districts around, or whoever attends that, the collaboration that went between internal audit and management to successfully resolve some comments in their report.
Okay, I just have to ask a question, though. Didn't we just say there's 15 outstanding and none of them? Oh, so there's other things that have been addressed?
I wasn't going to bring it up, but of those 15, there's like 4 subparts to every one of those 15. So while it says 15 have not been resolved, 3 of the 4 might have been, but we can't clear it because there's 1 out there.
So there really is a story there?
Oh, a lot of work has been done
Okay,
by
great.
both transportation and HR.
Oh,
But
okay.
it's just the way they do their reports. They have a lot of subparts to each recommendation. So
Oh.
that's our hesitation with closing those before all of those are closed.
Can you put a footnote on that chart then?
I will.
That acknowledges that for both of them? Because I looked at it and saying, oh my God, we have 15 things and nothing's done. So that would be really helpful, and especially because it's a good story of working together.
Yeah, I really wanted to highlight the collaboration.
This
You
is
know,
exciting.
The Council of Great City School comes in and they do this review, and they might be wondering, okay, what happens after we leave?
Right, no,
But
that's really nice, that's good.
Wanted to show this collaboration of what
Excellent.
happens.
I got approved to do never underestimate the value of a good monitoring report. Breakout session, so I'll be there too.
Governance section?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Excellent. Ms. Smith will be presenting GASB updates in your school district at the International Annual Conference of the Association of School Business Officers Organization. And then there's some district initiatives that OIA staff has taken part in. The CCS Safety and Security Summit, which was 2 days, put on by district staff and some outside vendors about safety and security. The Central Office Ambassadors Program.
Good.
And during the virtual school days, those first 3 days, we participated in meal site support and Chromebook distribution support. So we were out there helping.
Can I thank you. I saw pictures
Oh.
of you all out and about, and I was really incredibly grateful.
It was a great event to be out with the people doing that work and seeing the great work that they were doing.
Very grateful. Thank you.
And then our last page is, as always, page 14, our table of organization and our budget numbers.
Okay.
I'd be glad to take any questions anybody might have regarding this document. All right, thank you.
All right.
I just wanted to note that on September the 29th, we have arranged for the Auditor of State to come here, it's saying in person, to do their opening conference.
Okay.
And then our meeting will start, immediately after their opening conference.
All right, terrific.
And that concludes my report.
All right, thank you. If there's nothing else, Board Member Vera, are you okay? I'm not sure if I think she might be having phone trouble.
Yes, I'm okay. Can you
All
hear
right.
me?
I just wanted to acknowledge that you were here. I realized we hadn't said anything. Thank
I
you.
know. I tried to chime in a little bit earlier, but I don't think you heard me. But it's okay. I wrote my question down, and I'll just email it in a little bit later.
Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry. I apologize.
That's okay.
All right. All right. Let's adjourn. Don't need to vote or anything, do we?